So welcome to FTx Conversations. I'm your host today, Zack. So today I'm joined with my good friend, Tony Cooper. Tony's the owner of Tobacco Junction. It's a chain of tobacco stores based in Longview, Texas. And I've had the privilege of working with him since he joined the FTx family about 10 years ago. After getting to know him and his business, I knew that this guy gets it. He always knows what's going on in the industry, and he's embraced the alternative category. And most importantly, he does loyalty better than anyone else in the industry. So Tony, welcome and thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Zack.
So if I remember correctly, you are a second generation tobacconist. So tell us the Tobacco Junction story.
Yeah, so it really started with my mom. She, I think the story that everybody loves to hear is that she actually went to work in 1975, the year I was born, to pay for carpet for my bedroom as a baby. And so she went to work for a food and tobacco distributor based in Louisiana. And she just worked her way up. She actually retired from that company as executive vice president, number 2 in charge. When I was a teenager, you know, my job, especially in the summertime, I had to work in the warehouse. So I've done everything from stamp cigarettes to pull orders to compact dumpsters. That's how I entered the workforce as a kid, just working summertime through high school. And then when I graduated high school, that company offered me a full-time job, and I accepted that. Kind of worked my way up and ended up in the sales department that I really liked a lot, and that's how I met the then current owner of Tobacco Junction. He was a customer of mine, and after a period of a few years, he decided he wanted to sell his business, and I had good rapport. He asked me if I wanted to take a shot at it, and I did. And so Mom and I bought, Tobacco Junction as an 8-store chain in East Texas, and that's where we got started.
That's terrific. Yeah. So if it wasn't for carpet in the baby's room, you wouldn't be where you're at today then.
Yeah. She was motivated. She was motivated.
I hope you got the carpet. Was the carpet nice?
I was a kid. I'm sure it was, but I don't remember.
So obviously you've seen the ebb and flow of what the tobacco industry was, and it's kind of hard. I hesitate because it's not really the tobacco industry anymore. So in that vein, the alternative category, it's constantly changing and evolving. And we started with CBD, and then it was Delta 8, Delta 9, and there's THCA, HHC, all other variations of hemp. So how do you keep up with all these trends?
We read a lot of trade publications, but we don't take everything that we read as gospel. So when we see something, whether it be at a trade show, we do attend a lot of trade shows, or if we see something in a trade publication, we're always looking for our unique angle. You mentioned that the tobacco industry is not what it used to be. I mean, I can really remember that point in time where things changed, and it was really vape. It was it's kind of started a little bit in 2008. We started to see a few little things come up. There was the original Ruan device. It was in China. And then by the time you got to either 2011 or 2012, we entered the blue era. And, we knew vape was going to be big, but we never knew that it was going to just morph into all of these other things. And so we just try to be real open-minded about what tomorrow might look like with these products. The bottom line is that adult customers want to try these new emerging product categories. We've been shocked at people that if you try to profile them, just based on how they dress, what they drive, you'll miss the mark. You'd be amazed the number of people that come in and buy alternative products, and you just never would have guessed that they'd have been a candidate for that.
Absolutely. And talking with another customer in that same vein, they were really embracing the pipe category. And I said, why are you so successful at pipe? There's 10 other shops in here, but yours seems to be the busiest. You don't have the best prices. You don't have the best selection. And he said it's because a customer can walk into my location, a tobacco store, and no one judges them. If they walk into a true alternative shop, he says they feel like they're getting judged by others. So I think that rings true for you guys as well.
Yeah, it does. And we're sort of sensitive to that because we represent a lot of product categories. I mean, we have some of the largest walk-in humidors in the state. We have a pretty expansive selection of pipes and pipe tobaccos, Marlboro, Copenhagen, and then of course you have Kratom, Delta, and the accoutrements that go with those categories. Sometimes you will have customers that do object to there being Delta in the store, and so we try to segregate those products in such a way that minimizes any offense. In the Delta category especially, we installed these misters that go off every, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes. So it's a little bit expensive to operate them because the refills are pricey, but it just missed a burst of like clean linen smell into that area to sort of dampen the smell of some of the Delta products that are there. So we really go to great lengths to try to not be offensive in any way to anybody that comes to our store.
Sure, yeah, I can see that. You've got a guy that wants to come enjoy your cigar lounge, and he's walking past this row of paraphernalia, for lack of a better word, and you definitely don't want to offend him. Are you surprised that the customer that is walking to enjoy your cigar lounge, that traditional tobacco customer, are any of them inquiring about these products and purchasing these
products?
Buying
them. They're absolutely. I mean, yeah. So there's some reports and fast tracks that we can run, and we can see what spend is by product category. It's especially true if you start getting into the loyalty module, some of the loyalty specific reports, what campaigns they're hitting. It's you'd be surprised the guy that's buying a $500 box of Padron is picking up a couple of bottles of gummies a month, and you're just like,
great.
Wow,
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So how are you educating your cashiers and customers really on the difference in these categories, particularly in the hemp? Because it seems, I'm confused by some of it, so the average consumer's definitely got to be confused by it.
So we have books that go on the counter. We have a full-time marketing guy, and that's one of his roles, is to keep these pieces of marketing literature updated. This is not just on shelf signage. We have that as well. But if you're curious and you walk to the Delta cases, and that's going to be, a showcase in front or two, and then also back bar space for the product, you would have like a 3-ring binder type book there that's very professionally done, and it talks about both the subcategories, so whether that be edibles, gummies, whatever. So they're going to kind of explain what the differences are in those, and then it'll get into specific products. We don't list every single product in that book, but there are certain things that we have protected trade areas on, and we have certain private labels. Those are obviously going to be featured in that book. That's number one, but I'll tell you the absolute biggest. All of our employees are also loyalty customers in Fast Tracks, and we have their names flagged so that they're easy to sort. And at the first of every month, we put $50 on every employee's loyalty account. Instead of sending out samples and saying, hey, here's the next new item, we just put $50 on your account. We have found that is extraordinary because they spend it on the new items. A lot of them do, and then they have a chance to sample it and decide for themselves if they. So
you're making little ambassadors out of these guys.
Exactly.
Product ambassadors.
That's exactly right. Now, I will say again, going back to being burned more than once by a vendor promising that a product will do X, Y, Z. We do have a small group, about 5 or 6 people that we can call upon. So if a vendor sends in a sample, we say, hey, don't just send us one. You need to send us, 6 or 8 of these units. And then we send them to those people, and they provide written feedback about that item. Okay. That's especially true in the Kratom space. Delta's a little bit easier, but with Kratom products, there's a lot of people out there that'll lie to you about
Oh, absolutely. And I'm on the kratom spectrum. We've all tried some that was nowhere near as potent as others, but both of them claim the same MIT. So yeah, what do you do?
That's exactly right. I mean, if you base a product strictly on MIT, you're going to get nowhere. It's got to be in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, so to speak, and knows how it's supposed to work. So that's how.
Absolutely. Yeah. So speaking of loyalty, I believe the last time we talked, you said you were sitting at around 85%, meaning that 85% of your transactions were from loyalty customers. Is that still about accurate?
Yeah, it may even be higher than that. It's extraordinarily high.
Crazy. So what are some things you do to get to that number? Because that number does far exceed most industry standards.
Time is one factor. So, we started loyalty in about 2004, maybe even 2003 with punch cards. And Fast Tracks was not our first point of sale system. We had to, as we moved and changed point of sale systems, we had to figure out a way to incorporate those legacy loyalty programs to the new technology. And, I feel really good about where we are because we were able to bring forward those people and basically retire punch cards. And I don't remember when it was, but, 7 or 8 years ago, it's all now digital into this new system. And there's another very, very important component for stores like ours. You've got to figure out a way to get mass market consumers to participate. And the number one thing I hear from my peer group is there's just not enough money in cigarettes to offer anything. My take would be you can't afford not to. You can't afford not to offer them something. I think our current deal it's not huge, but it's buy 20 packs, get $1 back. And it gives the cashier something to say. So they're not saying nothing about loyalty. Oh, that's a cigarette person. Don't even offer them loyalty. No, bring them in. The value of that list is high. I'll give you an example. So when we did our very first sort of like event, we call them hot box events, where we take a van and go to a remote site and set up an event. Well, we want to text everybody that shops that store. So if you shop store number 2 and the event's at number 2, we want to send you a text. Sure. Your loyalty profile has to exist for me to send that marketing text. So you're in my list. So we had a lady, and I witnessed this transaction. This lady was in her 70s, and she bought 3 packs of Virginia Slims twice a week. I mean, just not a hugely profitable customer, but, a valuable customer nonetheless. So she's buying her 3 packs of Virginia Slim. She gets this text, and she comes through the drive-thru, and what's this about? What's this about? Oh, well, if I scan that barcode, I can give you a free 2-pack of gummies. So they zap her barcode, give her a free 2-pack of Delta gummies. 70-some-odd-year-old lady, Virginia Slim.
Sure.
She comes back a few hours later and says that was the most amazing thing she'd ever tried, wants to buy more. So, you take that customer that's modestly profitable and you start to introduce them to the other thing. How do you do that? Well, that is one of the ways, and that's one of the ways you can make that conversion. So,
and this customer is purchasing from a low margin category, a category that, as you mentioned, a lot of people don't market to from a loyalty perspective. So now you've transitioned that customer to a high margin category.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if I only sell her 3 or 4 bottles a year, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's revenue we did not have.
And also that keeps that customer coming to your shop versus stopping in a C store to pick up those same Virginia Slims, which are available everywhere.
That is correct. We refer to that as mass market categories: cigarettes, moist snuff, all that. Those are mass market categories, and that customer is very transient.
Yeah, and it's a necessary evil to sell those, but obviously you want to dial them into your specific, profitable categories or even private label categories.
That's right. And so I think that's the real secret is one of the big jumps is if you can figure out a way to get the mass market consumers to participate on their regular, everyday mass market purchases, you really can grow your loyalty database very fast.
Now you mentioned texting, because as we know, just getting the customer to sign up, that's just the start of the battle. Retention's the biggest point. And in addition to texting, how are you, maintaining customers or even winning those customers back who are no longer shopping with you? Because I know you can report and find out, hey, what customer hasn't spent money with us in the past X days. So how are you getting those customers back or retaining the existing ones?
Well, in terms of getting people back, we spent about a year trying something, and I'm going to tell you, it really wasn't that successful. What we did was we looked at your inactivity. So if you had been inactive for 90 days, we hit you with a text. And if you didn't respond to that text, we send you a direct mail marketing piece. And that's very expensive to do. What we found out was about 80%, maybe even a little more, of that group were mass market customers. And so, sure, if we're gonna send you with a direct mail piece, it's gonna be something of extreme value, like $10 off, no limit, so no minimum spend. Just come down and get your $10 at Tobacco Junction. And we did that because we really wanted to motivate them to come in, so we could see exactly what they bought. And you start going through those transactions, you see that 80% or more are mass market people, cartons of Marlboro. And somebody just happened to have a little bit better deal on Marlboro and they went somewhere else. And so we kind of just said, we're not going to do that. It's too expensive for what we gain as a company to keep chasing the mass market people, at least in that way. We do every month, we do what we call an inactive text. So if you were active, but then you were inactive for 30 days, you get a text. But I can't remember the exact timeline, but after a certain point, you're going to fall off. We're going to stop even spending a penny to text you. That has some positive effect, but these text messages don't have any value to they don't have any financial incentive. They're, hey, we miss you kind of text messages. Right. It's more of a marketing impact. And I think I would say we're really comfortable with that. We are. We're really comfortable after spending many, many thousands of dollars trying to lure people back. We just know that mass market people tend to be very transient, So you've kind of shifted your retention focus and towards your higher category, higher margin, categories. So you care more about you don't want to say you care more about your Kratom customer, but you're willing to spend more marketing to your Kratom customer, to your Delta customer. That's true, but I think when it comes to mass market, I think the more important thing to note is that we accept the reality that a certain number will not be as loyal as another group. I mean, I can promise you we've got people that still come and buy GPC and Doral that have been around for over 20 years. I mean, dead brands, GPC and Doral. But we also know that if you're a Marlboro Special Blend consumer, there's a higher likelihood that you're not going to be as loyal as some of the others. And so I think it's really just an acceptance of that reality. Okay, yeah, and maybe another thing to think about in that realm is they're loyal, but they're loyal to the brand and that brand's pricing, not to where they're buying that. That's brand. Correct. Yeah. That is correct. Yeah. That is correct. So let's talk sales and trends in the alternative space. So what's hot right now? When I say alternative space, really, I think of alternative as three distinct buckets. We have our hemp bucket or Delta bucket. Then we have the mushroom or psychedelic bucket, and then the Kratom bucket. So what are you seeing in each of those that's hot? With Kratom, there are a couple of products. There's a couple of new shots out there, and there's a new product called 7-hydroxy that are really driving some pretty strong revenue growth for Kratom. Everything else is definitely doing well, but those two, in terms of actual growth, those are producing some real growth. For Delta, most of the big growth over the last 6 to 8 months has been flower, bud. Just really that's been where the growth is. I'm not saying that edibles are not growing; they are, but the new flower products that have come to market have definitely driven the bulk of that number. Mushrooms, we're not doing very much with mushrooms. I think there's a disconnect. I think customers expect one thing, and the product delivers another thing.
Absolutely.
Yep, and that's not really working well. So we've seen some trials, but then you don't really see a lot of repeat from that. So we're not too excited about mushrooms. I mean, they may put up a decent number every month, but nothing huge. And we really, disposable vape products are really kind of that third bucket for us. We don't really think much about mushrooms just because it's not mature enough, but disposable vape products are still very, very strong for us.
On the kratom side, so, we have our shots and tinctures, which have been around for a minute. And in the capsule side, are you guys doing any of the, basically where the customer, you're selling it by weight, where the customer's allowed to, mix and match different blends or different flavors, and it's sold by weight, the powder by weight?
We're doing that in one store. It's kind of been in pilot, and it's not been successful enough to roll out to other locations. The store we're doing it in is our biggest kratom store.
Right.
And it's just doing okay. Nothing really to write home about. Now we are doing weighted flour. We are selling flour by weight.
Sure.
And again, select stores. That is doing exceptionally well. I would think that I believe we'll see more of that roll out as time goes on to more locations.
Yeah, because it's almost come full circle. I mean, we've gotten more calls in the past 6 months asking about scale integrations. And we had those years ago when you sold pipe tobacco that way. A lot of customers used to have the pipe tobacco bar when you sold it by weight. And now it's come full circle back, but it's by hemp and other products. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the issue I think you're going to have is that people expect to buy flour by the gram, because that's the way it's been sold for a very, very long time. So the fast track system only supports pounds, standard weight metric. What we did, and if you're curious, we set it up by, not as a weighted item, but as a by the piece item, and 1 unit is 1 gram.
Yeah, in our world, so on the fast track side, you can set it up and it doesn't care what a unit is. So you kind of define the unit, you know what I mean? The default is definitely ounce pounds, but you can, not mistaken, I'll get with you offline about this, but I think you can set it up to be any unit. It just cares on the weight side. If you're selling it by weight, it doesn't care ounce, pound, whatever. It's just unit, how many units for what price. But you're absolutely right. People are accustomed to buying by the gram.
Yeah.
Trying to sell any other way is not going to be a good thing.
We just found, overall, just the way the point of sale handles the transaction to all the way back on the back end where inventory is being managed correctly, basically moving it out of the weight ethos, just it's a little cleaner for us.
So basically you're breaking it apart before it's being sold and then putting it into some prepackaged unit of measures then?
No. Right. So when we send a store a transfer, let's just say we're going to send them a pound of flour. Mm-hmm. What they actually get is 432 pieces of flour. So a pound is 432 grams. Something like that. I don't know the exact math off the top of my head, but the girls know. So they actually transfer 432 units to that store, and then as that store sells that, it's counting down 1. So the question comes up is, what if it's a half gram? We just don't sell half grams.
Sure. Just minimum purchase quantities of grams. So it's almost like a parent-child then. The parent is the pound, the child is 432 units.
Correct.
In this case, it's grams. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found that on the powder kratom side, I found that those customers, are generally more intense kratom users or more sophisticated kratom users, if you will. But the average guy that wants to try kratom isn't going to try powder. So it's kind of been hard launching those powder stations for that reason.
Yes, yes, we think so too. There may be some opportunity in the future to do more of that, but oh boy, we sell a lot by the bag, and most of our customers seem quite content with that configuration.
Is it comparable margins across the board in the kratom spectrum, be it a tincture, a shot, pills, and powder?
With one notable exception being OPMS. We are hyper competitive on our OPMS products, the golds and the blacks. A little bit of a price war got started a couple of years ago with some of our competitors, and we just decided that we weren't going to be undersold on that line. And so, the margins on those are lower than we'd like to see. But for everything else, for the most part, now when you get into private label raw kratom, and we do have a couple of lines of private label raw kratom, those margins are much better.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Now, I've seen the carbonated drinks hit the market recently. You seen any traction with those?
No. The issue is that, the retail selling price has to be so high because just like with any beverage, the cost is in the transportation. So, about carbonated kratom beverages, the taste profile is good. There's fairly minimal effect compared to like a high MIT shot, OPMS or Hush. And the retail is pretty high. You're getting $5, $6, $7 retail for a carbonated beverage. We just met up with a lot of resistance from people.
Sure.
We had a lot of comments that said, hey, if it was $1 or $2, I'd be in. And we were like, well, it costs more than that shipped across the damn country. So
I would agree with that, yeah. So basically the consumer is paying a shot price or even higher than a shot price for a hit that's not near as hard as a shot hit.
Yeah.
Or you're asking the consumer to.
Right, especially if you're talking about, say, a Hush or I remember one of my most reliable testers, this is a person that uses at least one OPMS black shot a day. So they really know what they're supposed to be, they think that they told me I'd have to drink 6 or 7 cans of that.
Oh, wow.
And so now you're in the $40 range retail to get the same effect as an OPMS black for $18. And I think that's how they equate it, is how far does it take them versus the money they spend.
Yeah, I can see that. So.
Yeah.
So we've covered hemp, mushroom, kratom. Is there anything else out there in the alternative horizon that we should be looking out for, or that you guys are having success with?
The latest, greatest is going to be Nic packs. Nic packs, this is the Zens, if you can find Zen, and
right.
all of the other things in that ethos. Those numbers are really, really surprising me. Now, this may not be a trend that you see everywhere all at once, but here in Texas, we sell a lot of oral use tobacco, tons of Copenhagen and Skull. Our numbers are pretty damn extraordinary.
Are you seeing a conversion? Is it a customer converting from smokeless, or are you just seeing new customers for these?
All of the above. I would say the number one growth area are recently 21 adults. Some of them either were nicotine users, whether that be a vape or Copenhagen. They were buying it, friend was buying it for them or whatever. They are racing to Zen and Zen-like products.
Gotcha.
And, still most of the volume is in wintergreen and mint, which tells us that a lot of former Skull or Longhorn or Timberwolf people are probably using it. But we do have some crazier flavors, fruitier flavors. Those are putting up good numbers too, and we don't really think a lot of that stuff, that volume is coming from a traditional Skull guy.
Okay. Yeah,
because
I would agree.
Yeah, you can't really get Skull in crazy flavors. Get what you get.
So in that vein, we all know what's happened with flavors in other categories. Is there anything keeping you up at night regarding flavors, from the local, state, or federal legislation side?
Not no. We were there 2 or 3 years ago, and then it was just a bunch of huff and puff, and then they didn't blow the house down. So, I mean, they've been talking a big game, but I'm gonna keep some of my comments to myself.
Sure.
But I mean, the bottom line is that until they make a meaningful move, nothing is really banned. I mean, nothing is really banned, and so after 2 or 3 years of dealing with that, no.
We're good. Well, shifting back to a positive note, we'll end on that. So what is your favorite feature or function of Fast Tracks, other than myself?
Mass updates.
So the ability to basically dial in and quickly make a change on a group of items.
Yeah. Do you know that I just recently discovered that you can drag the columns left and right?
It's funny you say that. I just got through recording a Fast Tracks fact on that 2 days ago. And some of the things that we take for granted that are, people will try or people will discover on their own, doesn't happen. So yeah, discoverability of that one was very low. I'm glad you found it. You can also do that on the reorder and receiving worksheets. So
that's actually where I first found it, because we've been working on that so hard the last couple of months. And when I found it there, I was like, I wonder if that works in mass updates. And so I jumped over, and sure enough, it did.
Terrific, awesome.
But yeah, being able to work with a very large data set, configure the data so that it what you're seeing on the screen can be reconciled with what's going through your brain. Boy, it's huge. It is such a time saver.
Well, good, awesome. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So yeah, unless there's anything else you wanted to get into, Tony, anything that everybody needs to know about the tobacco world.
Well, you certainly are a big part of Fast Tracks, and why we're satisfied with the system. I mean, nothing is perfect, but working towards improvement is just super important. And so it's just been really impressive to work with you and work with Fast Tracks and just try to make the software better, make it do more, make it more relevant. So yeah, it's been a very good experience overall.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, you are a big reason for Fast Tracks. I mean, as you know, your feedback and customers like you are really why we're at today. So thanks for the feedback. So and it's always insightful to pick the brain of someone who I think is killing it in the industry. So thank you, Tony. So
thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, until next time, take care, guys. Thanks, Tony.